Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Solution Club. It is Tuesday, March 2nd, and we've been talking, thanks, Marco. We've been talking about COVID and various, aspects of it, including totalitarianism, big lies spread by government, media, et cetera, and this sense that you can't trust anything or anyone anymore. Here's where the big idea I'd like to insert into that whole conversation is that if there is hope for us, it rests in us coming together and forming a collective superintelligence, which in its simplest terms consists of a network of conversations growing exponentially, hyper-connected, actual conversations such as this one, with all kinds of cool stuff overlaid on top, including but not limited to bots that help us find those conversations where we can really be most effective and contribute the most, and maps to our particular passions the most, passions, skills, what have you. Some, for lack of a better word, this is a bad word, but social networking functionality, stuff like reputation, et cetera. If somebody's a disruptor, if somebody's, been called out for XYZ, that reputation can follow them. But more on the positive side, which is where I think we should focus the most, people who really are good at either facilitating or contributing to conversations need to be promoted. But the bottom line is that we form a vast network of conversations which can optionally map to not just one taxonomy, because I don't believe in one taxonomy of topics, but can map to an arbitrary number of taxonomies of topics for an arbitrary number of purposes. And this maps to the different, levels of overlay on top of the network of conversations. But that fundamentally, the fundamental thesis that I'm proposing, it's not necessarily my idea. I'm sure a lot of people have come to the same conclusion, but the fundamental thesis is this: that humanity organized into a network of conversations, which is infinitely expandable, certainly has no limit to expansion, that through this network of conversations, with appropriate features and overlays, as I've been discussing, including but not limited to transcription and search and all those good things, and people being able to overlay metadata on top of a conversation that's already happened. Like, hey, this question that was raised that nobody seemed to be able to answer during the meeting, guess what? Here's an answer, with a link to whatever answer. That vast network of conversations with I'm just going to say layers of features, for lack of a better word, right? Layers of features on top. That is something which I believe has the potential very quickly to overtake and overwhelm, in fact, the centralized concentrations of power, misinformation, lies, totalitarianism, exploitation, hoarding, et cetera, et cetera. The billionaires getting richer, the government supporting the billionaires putting their people in office so that the government can continue to support the billionaires even more, et cetera, et cetera. And whatever aims they have. I believe there's a certain degree of organized intelligence behind that. I mean, the CIA exists. That's kind of a classic example of malevolent collective intelligence, right? They hire pretty smart people and, organize them for arguably malevolent purposes, expanding American empire, corporate power and profits, monopolies, et cetera. Anyway, I just use this as an example. I don't want this to be about the CIA, but I believe that this decentralized network of conversations, empowered by myriad layers, all of which are optional, right? Because as soon as you say, hey, this layer is a must and someone's controlling it or centralizing it, it's automatically disqualified as the thing. So I think these need to be decentralized optional layers. So if I want to map a certain conversation to a certain taxonomy, I can just do it, right? And anyone who wants to see those mappings can just turn them on or off. So I see Eric put a link in there. Anyway, there's a lot of ideas going on around this. I was at a meeting yesterday for about 2.5 hours. I wish I'd been able to spend longer there. Marco and Christopher joined as well. Alan, I'm not sure if you were there, but put on by Kiko Lab. They're, as far as I'm concerned, one of the world leaders in this whole collective intelligence thing, beckoning to become collective superintelligence. Thanks, Alan. But anyway, they meet every Monday. We've got our meetings. So there's a number of groups that essentially get it around the collective superintelligence thing. I articulated to them the same thing I'm about to articulate to all of you, which is that I really see two fundamental elements to the answer, if indeed there is hope for us at this point. And I say that if, kind of philosophically, morally and spiritually, I am committed that we're going to get through this. We have to save life on Earth. There's just no other option, and we need to transform it. But fundamentally, I see two pillars to it. Two aspects, two facets, two sides to the yin yang. One is, for lack of a better word, this decentralized platform for collective superintelligence that I keep talking about. The second is an emergent strategy, which rides on top of the platform, right? That has the potential to go exponential in terms of adoption, support, et cetera. If it were up to me, it would go like this: feed everyone first, starting in Los Angeles, do it this way, this particular way, plant-based, et cetera, et cetera. Let that kick off a whole V for Vendetta domino train called basic human needs become basic human rights. And then that whole train of taking care of people's basic human needs is the vehicle for liberation of humanity, so that we can, A, spend more time in conversations like these, think platform, and B, focus those conversations on the rest of the strategy beyond that one V for Vendetta train of dominoes called liberation. Once we're liberated, what do we do with this liberation? The point of liberation isn't liberation. The point of liberation is so that we can finally get our heads screwed on straight as a species and focus on what's really important: saving life on Earth, continuing to develop and evolve that particular V for Vendetta train of dominoes called take care of everyone, take care of all people. And people, once taken care of, that's like humanity putting on her own oxygen mask. Then we can shift focus to the woman sitting next to us, who happens to be our mother, Mother Earth. And then we can focus on putting on her oxygen mask, right? And, and top of the list there is solar radiation management. We've got to freaking cool it already. We got to cool the planet, not just stop exponential planetary overheating, but reverse it, get us down to a livable temperature. Among many other things, going vegan is part of the feed everyone plant-based foods. So that's kind of baked into that. The health benefits of that are extreme. And so you already essentially get most of healthcare taken care of, again, with the feeding. So again, just to wrap it up and then pass the talking feather, two facets: platform for collective superintelligence, the network of conversation plus all these layers of decentralized goodness layered on top. And then number two, the emergent strategy therein, not what Jamin says it should be, but what'll emerge from the collective superintelligence. I'm just throwing my 2 cents into it. With that, I pass the talking feather. We are recording, and really happy to see everyone. Take it away, Eric, or whoever has something to chime in.
Well, if no one else wants to go, I've got to go in a minute anyway. So if no one else wants to go, I'll jump in real quick. Yeah, the link I've put in the chat window is to something called the Global Consilience Project, which hasn't actually started yet. But I know the people who are starting it up, and that, I mean, this is exactly what it's meant to be: is a source of reliable, trustworthy, curated information, right? Processed to whatever level you want it, kind of thing. And so there's on that web page is just a short video sort of explaining the idea and an opportunity to register for when they are ready to become a part of it. I've already registered, but take a look at that, because, as I say, Zach Stein and Daniel Schmackenberger, who are the two people behind it, I have deep trust in their motives and in their capabilities to take on something like this, because it's a giant project. So yeah, that's part one of it, right? Is having good, accessible, well organized, trustworthy information that you can use for your sense making, right? I mean, there's no point using faulty information and then try and do good sense making with it, right? This is not possible. So that's what the Consilience project is about. And also having information that comes from a variety of perspectives. It's not all coming from one body, from one, it's a distributed decentralized project. So yeah, as I say, I don't know a huge amount about its architecture, but I do know what the spirit behind it is. And yeah, rather than building something from scratch, joining and supporting that and becoming a part of that, and then utilizing that for layering the strategies on top, rather than building yet another bubble to fragment off on its own.
No, totally. And in fact, my going over to the Kiko Lab meeting, whereas normally I just focus on, our meetings here, but it was precisely to build bridges to other bubbles. Let's get all the soap bubbles together to form one giant bubble. I'm all for that 100%. And in fact, I think that's, that's got to be the answer, is these different bubbles coming together, because each of these groups and communities that have been emergent and growing, we all need to coalesce around this fundamental benevolent aim. And basically, either you get it or you don't. Either you're aligned with it or you aren't. And part of the it is not just the objective, but the spirit and the culture and the egalitarianism and the non-monetization and just so many other aspects to it, that where I think so many of the groups out there are really screwing it up. But there are a number, I won't even say small, there are a number of groups that really seem to get it. And I think the imperative now is for these to come together and us to harmonize around, again, not just one layer, but all these multiple layers, all of which are optional. So how do you have a whole bunch of optional layers, but essentially one single network? Right? That's potentially a seemingly impossible balancing act between essentially centralization and decentralization. Not centralization, but let's call it concentration and unification, but at the same time in a decentralized way. The whole blockchain universe perhaps being a great example, maybe the best example, maybe the only example, because they really seem to have mastered decentralization, right? And this whole optionality, that everything is optional and decentralized. And yet at the same time, it all is hovering around a center of sorts, or a concentration of sorts, or a unified intention of sorts. So where am I bottom line going with all this? Yes, I definitely want to connect with that group. I want to connect with all these other groups. And I think we have a big project of stitching together and weaving together and joining together. And, I think out of all this, some Barcelona towers of humanity, of human conversations are going to emerge. Such as this one, such as the one in Kiko Lab yesterday. It sounds like this Consilience project that you're talking about is yet another. I would characterize their layer, based on what you've described, as getting good information, good intelligence, correct information, and weeding out the bad information. But good information is great. Then what do you do with it? And I think intention, and that's where I talk about the strategy. What is the strategy for us collectively getting out of this mess that we can concentrate around? I have to take something off the stove. I'm listening in 100% of the time, so I won't miss a beat. Going on mute, passing the talking feather. Eric, sounds like you got to go. Feel free to say some last words if you'd like. I'm listening in. I just got to get something off the stove.
No, that's okay. I've got nothing else, except that the second link I put in the chat window is to that the transcript of that testimony I mentioned to you before. All right, guys, nice to see you. I'll see you whenever I next see you.
what you're saying, how good information is important, because when you come from a shaky foundation or perspective, you can have the best intentions and still misapply, like, where your focus is.
Hey, Alchemy, you're kind of breaking up there. We're recording. I'm going to pause just so we can sort out the technicals. Yeah, totally. We need good intelligence. And again, there's so many layers to that of, what are the facts? And I mean, that's just a whole realm unto itself. As I see it, building upon facts, a synthesis of facts, one of the syntheses of facts can be a model, right? Of, like we've been talking about, how do we cool the planet, right? And the fact that we don't really have an agreed upon model for that, a computer model, a simulator that says, okay, here's the world, we've got it simulated, so now we can run different scenarios. What if we threw this lever? What if we threw that other lever? With such a model, we could then do exploration across myriad different scenarios, and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick the very best one based on what the simulations tell us. But until we get a good model that we can agree upon, we won't be able to have that, scenario analysis and pick the very best scenario, AKA the path forward, right? Policy, law, et cetera, et cetera. And in order to have good models, we need to have good facts. We need to have good collective sense making. So it all ties together, right? Anyway, that's just what's coming to me. Passing the talking feather. Love to hear from everyone. And in the absence of hearing from others, I'll just continue yapping on, but don't hesitate to interject. I really want to hear from us all, because there's so many key aspects to all this. I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, but it's partly because I really want to explore this and get to the root of it. I mean, are we on to something or not by having basically kind of fundamentally a two, I'm just going to call them, I don't want to call them layers, but two fundamental sides, like almost two sides to a coin on this of global transformation. One is the platform side. And out of the platform of, how do we get together and have conversations and, help guide people or help people guide themselves to the right conversation or conversations within that network, right? And help guide even, work beyond conversation, say, open source development of solutions, whether those solutions are meta solutions like models, which can be used to help tease out the best scenarios, AKA the best strategies. Really, strategies and scenarios are kind of two different things, but they're all part of what I'll just call the solution. So one side is the platform. The other is the solutions that emerge from that platform. Anything from food healers to veganism, to solar radiation management, to laws, to policies, to 3-minute videos that go viral that help people harmonize on whatever. These are all solutions. So we've got platform and solutions. Now, in a broader sense, the platform or the platform, just to call it singular, though it'll have myriad layers, most or all of which optional. I guess all of which optional, because anything that's not optional is a huge red flag from a, based on what I commented earlier. But anyway, I'm just saying a platform is a solution, but let's separate those two into the two sides of the coin. The platform is the network of conversations and all of the tools and layers which support that, whether it's search algorithms, whether it's social networking features, whether it's taxonomies, you know, forms of tagging, forms of broadcasting like Twitter, tools for meetings such as Zoom, like we're on right now. I see all of these as layers of essentially a decentralized platform where each of the layers is optional. And yet, out of all this decentralization and everything being optional, concentrations emerge, right? And in fact, we could sort of think of these concentrations as sort of the boundary layer between the platform and all of its optional layers, concentrations as a boundary layer, and then solutions coming out of the other side of that boundary. I almost want to draw a picture of it to help bring that to light. I just need to find a cable. I had to rearrange the whole desk situation here, so things are a little bit, oh, here we go. There's the cable I need. Okay. So I can draw some pictures. And just jump in, especially if you have like questions or comments or, hey, Jamin, this is all confusing. You know, are you stoned? What's going on? No, I'm not stoned. But, you know, really pepper me with questions, especially if you have something to do with Pepperdine University. Just pepper away with questions. All right, so I'm going to screen share in a moment. But again, your questions are the priority. Your questions or comments, just jump in, because I don't want to be dominating the talking feather.
Hello.
Yes, Alan. Yeah, go for it.
I'd like something to do, like a mission plan. I mean, coming here, there's like, we've got like six faces on the screen just now.
Yeah.
And only 2 of them actually working. Mine isn't even working. But you know, to create an actual feel of power of presence or actual moving forward. Well, one of the things I think is what has already been done to some extent is reaching out to other leaders, like who've already got whole groups and stuff. Yeah, like is it Climate Healers is a big website. Yeah. And 1 or 2 of these other groups are bigger groups. But even just having a brief email that we could use to post out to, there are thousands of groups that have got large follow-ins, and being able to like get in contact with whoever's in charge and speak to them one-to-one and sort of invite them and see what their opinions are on forming alliances and getting, like you say, all the bubbles to a big ginormous soap bubble. Hopefully one that doesn't pop.
Is that your skill set?
So some sort of direction to make that grow.
Like reaching out.
What would be the best path to do that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I know
Your voice is very sort of robotic and broken up. If you
Alchemy, what you might want to do is turn off your camera when you're talking, just so you can concentrate the bandwidth to your voice. There you go. Go ahead, Alchemy. We're listening.
I mean, you could ask the Amazon like Native American Alliance, like how they. Like,
your things, my microphones went muted. I don't know if you actually muted it yourself or if it's just went muted, but
yeah, I was just going to give an example of like, the Rainforest, Alliance, like, two indigenous groups of people from like completely different continents who like, have formed like a strong alliance, presumably through the medium of like, VoIP and long distance technology, Skype communication, Zoom, etc. But I mean, yeah, if you feel like you have a skill set like to bringing people together, I mean, I know, like, and any one thing any leader wants mostly half the time is to have, more talent or resources to apply to the vision. So yeah, I definitely think people working. We all are a network at the sub-etheric level, but definitely community and drive and organization. I mean, inspires people. I mean, do you feel you're good at bringing people together? I suppose was my question.
So first of all, let me address what you talked about first about this alliance. And let me address it pictorially, because I really think that's really crucial. So let me go ahead and address that, and then I'm happy to address your other question. So everyone can see the screen here, I presume. So I'm going to point to this kind of cluster. Okay. This thing in the middle is what I'm going to call the alliance, and I'll use the Indigenous Alliance that you're making reference to, which is a very real one. It's not theoretical. It actually exists. What I'm showing here are these are what I'm calling the layers, all of which are optional and decentralized. Of the, I'm just going to call it decentralized platform, just to give it a word. And it just occurred to me a nickname for that could, hey, we've got Ananda here. Let me admit Ananda, just say hello to her. Ananda, welcome back, sister. Oh my goodness, great to see you. You're muted. Feel free to say hello.
Hi.
Hey, Ananda, great to see you.
Happy to see you. What's going on here?
Well, you're catching us midstream in a conversation that I would say is perfect for you, or you are perfect for. So Cupid is at work here, bringing wonderful ladies in the form of Ananda with wonderful ideas. So I was just answering a comment from Alchemy, and I was screen sharing and drawing a picture here. So I'll get back to that. We are recording.
Okay.
And we can pause recording at any time. Just ask for a pause. So just to recap a little bit here. So this stack of what looks like a stack of discs here on the left, I'm calling this, each of these is a layer. These are different layers of a platform. You could think of them as different layers of ICIC if you wanted to. And they're all decentralized and they're all optional. That's a crucial part, because the moment something stops being optional and starts to be imposed, that's not good, shall we say. But anyway, so we've got all these decentralized optional layers. And I'm saying that the sum total of all of them, including just a kind of an endless number, because anytime anyone wants to contribute any sort of decentralized resource to the picture. In fact, let me text Michael Gaio right now. Great meeting going on right now, comma, feel free to join us, exclamation point. We are talking decentralized, ... Anyway, hopefully Gaio will be able to join us. But you know, a limitless number of layers. What do I mean by layers? I mean, well, let me put it in the following terms. Layers to what? The thing that's getting layerized upon is this network of conversations, which has existed even before modern humans existed. It's basically just entities talking with each other. And so I'm just kind of representing it, not that it's in any sort of perfect crystalline structure, far from it. But imagine each of these circles is a conversation, right? Like what's happening right now. Now imagine sort of, you know, looking that kind of on the side. I'm going to kind of do a quasi flat representation of it right now. Okay. So if this is this network of conversations, then you could imagine layers being superimposed or underimposed or whatever. Above, below, it doesn't matter. They're basically parallel layers, which could include, for example, I'll just start making a list of them. Search engines. Hey, I want to find a conversation that maps to my interests and maps to my passions, whatever, right? You know, filtering, algorithms, you know, bots, you know, social networking features, kind of a loaded word, but for lack of a better word, social network. I'll just put social networking like, you know, features so that people can both promote themselves and each other and ideas and whatnot. On and on and on and on and on, all with a view to what? We're essentially creating a Match.com where it is being created. We're not creating it, the world is creating it, but it's basically a Match.com that connects people with, and I'll just go with it, this kind of oval that I'm representing as conversations, right? You know, that's really the holy grail, is how do we connect the right people to the right conversations at the right time? And so that this whole network will work. Okay, so you've got these layers layered on top of this network of conversations, represented by all these circles connected to each other. And out of all these layers and this whole network of conversations emerges what I'm calling, just for lack of a better word, concentration, right? What are we getting from this? We're getting concentrations, plural, concentrations of people and efforts and resources around anything, something, right? Multiple concentrations. So Alchemy just gave the example of an indigenous alliance between North America and South America of different indigenous groups. And out of such concentrations, so I'm kind of sort of seeing concentrations as somewhat of a boundary layer. You could sort of think of this as, you know, you've got, you know, A over here on this side with the network and the layers, B being, I'm just going to call it solutions, right? And there's myriad categories of solutions, right? And I sort of see concentrations as sort of like, you could think of it in a way as kind of a boundary layer, right? Between and by the way, all this I'm just calling the platform. You know, a decentralized platform. I'm going to call it, I'll just use the word platform. Let's go with simple. But we know it's decentralized and it consists of all these optional layers that you can use or ignore to your heart's content. But ultimately, all these layers of the platform are facilitating people finding the right conversations, you know, doing this Match.com Cupid connection between, I'm just going to use Ananda as an example. Ananda was drawn to this conversation today. And so that, as I said, when I said, hey, Cupid's at work, oh, hey, boop, Ananda got into the conversation. Now here she is, contributing to it, listening at the moment, certainly will be speaking soon, but that's enriching our conversation. So Match.com, A+, you're doing your job, great. Anyway, I'm calling all these different features sort of a collective Match.com, where it's not just one, it's not one platform, it's not one service, but it's a whole bunch of layers, all of which are optional, right? You use which ones work best for you. Out of our collective use of whatever combinations of these layers each of us wants, Match.com like connections are made, and lo and behold, over time, things like alliances, movements, right? You know, revolutions, preferably nonviolent, etc. Basically, these are what I call concentrations. So you got platform, and empowering and enabling and leading to concentrations, ultimately of effort and resources, ultimately leading to not just the design of solutions, but the implementation of solutions, right? I might as well make that explicit. Design and implementation of solutions. So we got platform, concentrations, and solutions, which actually get implemented in the world. So that's, you know, my version of the new story of humanity in a nutshell. A lot of this got inspired from a meeting I went to yesterday, and a number of us, Marco and Christopher and Dana, we went on a little field trip yesterday to Kiko Lab, which meets every Monday. Charlie Blass, Lauren Mignon, among others, leading that, and just had a fantastic multi-hour conversation. And what's becoming clear is, so they, for example, are, you know, doing amazing work on the platform side, the platform of what I'm calling collective superintelligence. All of this constitutes, you know, collective superintelligence in motion. What I'm basically, you know, one of my kind of key arguments is that in order to generate the kind of concentrations that we need to really move the ball down the field, like here, what we're doing is as a concentration around IC, among other things, right? So there's a concentration of people around a particular mission, which is, you know, create this intentional city in the clouds, which was born out of, just consider, the existing platforms, including the Zoomosphere, which is a mega platform, and certain solutions being kicked around and saying, hey, these solutions being discussed on this platform have led to a concentration, right? And so the key elements I see are platform and solution, and remember I said there's different aspects or facets or categories of solutions, among them strategies. So in its simplest terms, right? My Adam and Eve story of collective superintelligence and the new story for humanity. Cupid, Adam and Eve, you can tell where my heart is today. It goes like this. There was a platform, and on that platform, somebody came along and said, hey, boom, here's a strategy for how we can save life on Earth and transform life on Earth. And that combination of platform and strategy resulted in a concentration of people coming together, basically saying, let's do it. Rewind 50,000 years ago before language, and it looked like a bunch of, you know, hairy people like myself getting together going, you know, let's do this. That was like the first concentration of anything around an idea, which was, right? And, you know, now here we are in way beyond 2001, thanks Alchemy, in 2021, 20 years beyond Space Odyssey 2001, and beyond, here we are having, you know, ostensibly sophisticated conversations, just kind of poking fun at myself, hopefully sophisticated conversations about how do we do this? How do we save, heal, and transform life on Earth? I've been talking too much. I'm going to pass the talking feather. We are recording, happily so. Do this if you want to pause at any time. No problem. We can pause and restart anytime. It doesn't affect the recording or anything. Going on mute. Love you all.
Well, hi there. Ananda Elise Reeves here from Future Now Radio. I want to plug that in there because this stuff's being recorded. I want people to know full well where I come from. So I've been having a blast on Future Now Radio lately. I have the best job in the world. I interview extraordinary people that are making extraordinary pathways and creating extraordinary results on our planet. And I'm always so grateful when I finish an interview because it helps me stay awake to what's really going on the planet, what's really, really going on. And everything you just described, Jamin, is really, really going on. And guess what? It has absolutely nothing to do with Fox News or any other corporate-owned think they're God media people. When I interviewed Jamaica Stevens, she's a high roller activist. She said one sentence that blew my mind. She says, this information and this knowledge about the change makers is invisible to the normal average public person because the media doesn't give it any attention. But if you start digging around and looking at all the platforms and looking at all of the discussions and everything going on, what boggles my mind is, why are we still all separate about this? Really? So we've got millions and millions and millions of change makers out there, all of them getting the messages from the concourse on high about being inspired. These days, they're all getting their information, whether it's technical or spiritual or health-wise or planetary-wise or environmental-wise or planet overheating or vegan-wise or whatever. People are all being talked to from the concourse on high. I call it the Divine Arrangements Committee. So everyone's getting the message. And as you think about how many people are on the planet, that's how many messages there are. And people are coming forward with their own passion. I just had a beautiful interview with Glow. She was just on fire with being in service to environmental work. And I had an interview this past week with Fabiano from Brazil. He's running the Regenerative Intelligence Organization. It was all about education for young kids to teach them strategy thinking about the issues on the planet and what strategies we would need to repair them or to move forward. And so each of those people are getting a message from the Divine Arrangements Committee, and they're all their own separate little messages, and they're going out and they're creating their movements, or they're creating their you know, revolutions or whatever they're doing. And it's kind of like the cells in our body. There's millions of them, and sooner or later they're going to bump into each other. And in order for them to actually really create a human being, they all have to work together. And what I want to know is, why aren't we doing that? What is it about us as human beings that's keeping us all separate? Because the messages are all out there. They've been out there for a really long time. Some people, you know, have been working on in our lifetime, have been working on this work for 50 years. And some people, you know, it's a new generation of people have been working on it for hundreds of years. So we're on a great path. Humanity is really waking up, rising. Everyone's hearing the calling from their own Divine Arrangements Committee, and they're doing their work. And more power to them. And my question again is, why are we doing all this work separately? What's keeping us separate? So anyway, that's what I have to report. Future Now Radio is just really hopping now. We're getting some absolutely amazing interviews. And Future Now Radio gets to go to Peru and document the movement of making half of the world's population vegan by 2026. Stay tuned. That's going to be our ongoing on the ground story. And we're showing people how to create community houses all over the world that have to do with bringing people in from the cold, bringing them in, nurturing them, nutritionalizing them, working with saving the planet all in one household so that we're not isolated. So we're working together collaboratively to do more and more really powerful work. That's kind of the doorstep I'm standing on right now. Anyway, I'm always glad to be here on this channel with these people, because they're all getting your own messages from the Divine Arrangements Committee. And I just encourage you to keep going with that, but stay open to the fact that we all need to give a little in order to come to the center and shine the light on the whole of collective of humanity. Don't stay too stuck in your own little Divine Arrangements Committee conversation. You may have to compromise a little bit of your ownership to that message in order to be a really, truly part of the collective. So those are my words for wisdom for the day. I really appreciate what you're saying, Jamin. That's the good news. The bad news is I don't have much time. I need to check out. So I'm just going to do this kind of one round of conversations and listen for people's feedback from what I just said. And then I need to go because I am building a website so that my classes can be available to everyone online, and we can continue to learn to manifest together. That's the only way it's going to happen, is if we collectively manifest together. So I'm going to go back to that work. But anyway, thank you, Jamin. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am here for feedback and questions, and then I need to take off. Peace and love.
Well, let me give you feedback. Let me give my observation. I think what you're saying and doing is terrific. This is something cute. I've studied with Sri Narode, who's been a yoga teacher in the United States since 1920.
Wow.
From Harvard. He escaped Pakistan and came to Europe and then here. But this is what he has to say. He says, your name says it all about you. And of course, your name is Ananda. And I am a direct disciple of Shivananda and Yogananda and Chimananda and Chidananda and Satchidananda. And so the feedback to you and to notice to everybody is Ananda, by her name, is a person we must listen to. So that's my feedback. I've got some things to say, Jamin, about you said, but I wanted to respond to Ananda because she has to go. And of course, Jamin and I and the rest appreciate you stopping by. Amen. Hallelujah, Muhammad, Hare Krishna.
I love you, man. I'm always happy when you're here.
Love is what I'm all about. Wrote my thesis on that in 1962. Erich Fromm's concept of love and the art of loving. Okay, I'm back to the rest of you. Feedback for Ananda.
All right. Well, I've got some feedback for Ananda, but I first want to give other folks a crack at the talking feather. Welcome back, Michael Gallo, and welcome, Kate. Welcome, Kate, sister. We are recording. We can pause at any time. Just do this if you want to pause or say pause. Passing the talking feather for more feedback from for Ananda before I give my feedback to Ananda.
Michael and Kate just missed it.
Well, in fact, in my feedback, I'm happy to even recap a little bit. So I'll share the picture, which might help recap both with particular emphasis on what you're saying. But basically, if you can see the screen here, at a very simple level, we've got this platform that's emergent, which consists of all these decentralized layers, which are helping us to get together, right? So what is it helping us to get together? So we've got this network of conversations, which I represent this way, and then I kind of flatten it here, kind of imagine rotating it onto a plane, and then above and below it, vegan Big Mac style, or Impossible Burger style, we have all these layers, right, that essentially operate on and facilitate that network of conversations, search engines, filtering algorithms, bots, social networking-like features, etc., all of which constitute a collective Match.com for connecting people to conversations, right? And I added to the list radio programs such as Future Now Radio. All of these are layers which help bring people into conversation. And the first manifestation of this is concentrations, like Alchemy mentioned, a specific indigenous alliance. Through the use of these platforms, all of which are optional and decentralized, because that's what you have when you don't have totalitarianism, is everything is optional and decentralized, ideally. We have these concentrations, and Ananda's big question is, hey, given that, okay, and then of course, just to complete the picture, these concentrations then lead to solutions, emergent solutions, right? Which is really kind of the ultimate product of all this. And then of course, everything feeds back on itself because some of the solutions in turn are yet new layers to add to the layer cake of optional platforms, creating this decentralized collective Match.com of bringing us together. And so Ananda's question is, hey, why is it taking so long for us to come together? The way I would frame that question in the context of this framework is, hey, why is it taking us so long to concentrate? Why are we so fragmented? And my answer is, and I'm going to give a non-vegan analogy, vegans cover your ears. But when I was in preschool, I remember I'll never forget it. One day we sat around in a big circle and the teacher brought this big mason jar full of cream and we passed around and shook it up and shook it up and shook it up. And lo and behold, after a bunch of cycles and shaking it up, there emerged this big central butterball of concentration, right? And And so I could have said at the beginning of that, hey, why isn't all the fat concentrated in one big ball? Why is it all? Well, it's because the process hasn't iterated enough times to create the desired concentration, right? And in the end, what kind of a concentration are we looking for anyway? Well, in the decentralized paradigm where everyone's free to go wherever they want, there will be myriad concentrations. And and that you can measure and even stack rank if you want, and there can be different algorithms for stack ranking. It's all decentralized, so you can look at it from, hey, which movements have the most members? That's one way of stack ranking. Which projects have the most money? Which revolutions are getting the most airtime? Anyway, these are all ways of measuring. optional ways of measuring. But in the end, we're beckoning towards concentration, right? Around, ideally, hopefully, the most urgent solutions, like feeding everyone, cooling the planet through SRM, right? And then other solutions are kind of more on the meta level, like some really urgent pieces to the platform that we want to build, right? Like ICIC, like a more expanded Future Now radio, which might become a Future Now radio network, right? So some of the solutions are meta in that they're layers of the decentralized platform. Some of the solutions are concentrations themselves, you know, alliances, movements, revolutions, gatherings, symposia, conferences, whatever. These are all concentrations, right? And then pop out of the concentrations come more solutions, some of which get designed but not implemented. Others get designed and implemented. So anyway, that's, again, it's a recap of framework, but also kind of feedback to your question, why is it taking us so long to get together? And Michael has some feedback. Yes, Michael.
Oh, thanks. I didn't mean to interrupt you right there. Are you done, Jamin?
Almost. Let's see here.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, just to wrap it up, it's like I just see it as an evolution, and you know, we both need urgency and patience at the same time. Patience because it is kind of all working according to plan. The question is, can we get it done in time to keep the planet from burning up? It'd be kind of nice to get this done before we all burn to a crisp, so that life can go on. So yes, there's urgency, but also just, it's like sometimes this is in a way, this is an answer to my own frustration. Why is it taking us so long? Well, it's happening and we just need to keep at it. So just stay in the dance, you know, stay in the dance. And at the end of the night, everyone will get satisfied. All right, going on mute, and Michael, take it away.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that question too. That's actually a question I've addressed months ago. I did a full presentation on a perspective I have around this, because you feel this a lot these days. I mean, people are extremely frustrated, impatient, highly emotional around the state of the world right now, understandably. And yet also, you know, in my sense too, that a lot of that is maybe too much. It's also a little bit getting in our way a bit if we're too impatient and not seeing things clearly of what, you know, it's a great question. Why is it taking so long? Because I've been in this conversation for decades. I've been on I was a protester, and I've worked on all kinds of projects around sustainable technologies, all this kind of stuff. It's like, why does it take so long? Why is there so much inertia, it seems, in the collective? Why aren't people waking up? You know, it's just like, well, you know, we are waking up. And yet one way to look at it is look at like, well, actually, you know, if you look at the big span of evolution, you know, it's taken billions of years to get to this point. It took a long time to get here. And what human beings have done in just a matter of decades and even 200 years is incredible. If you look at what happened, how long it took humans to even get to like having a wheel was tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. And then what we did with the wheel up to this point has just been radical. So we're moving actually light speed. We're really, really good. We're a species that are really, really good at innovating rapidly. Yet still, there's a integration time of things. We already have solutions. We have all the answers. Yet there's just an integration time. I think just things that naturally occur. Second answer too is why if we had the answers decades ago, and we've known this was coming for so long, why still all the resistance? Why aren't we all just coordinating and getting together and just naturally figuring it out in such an easeful way? And I think part of it is psychology, that and really deep psychology. This is something I did a presentation on months ago. Said basically, you know, one idea. This is just kind of some speculation, but I think there is truth to it. That the collective species, we have a lot of trauma in our collective psyche, in our collective memory that we're not fully aware of, actually. It's literally in the unconscious. The unconscious, by definition, means not conscious. So we have a lot of content of our past history, all the wars and strife and all the stuff. We have, to be specific too, and I did a huge presentation on this. There was actually an event about 13,000 years ago of an asteroid strike on Earth that we're finding evidence of now that nearly wiped out the human species. 13,000 years ago is actually not that long ago. Okay, and I actually think we still have that in our collective memory. I have a theory that what's happening right now with the global crisis, in many ways, is an unconscious expression and creation to deal with that initial crisis 13,000 years ago. In some ways, our collective on an unconscious level wants and needs a current crisis right now in order to feel and process the trauma of that crisis 13,000 years ago when we were almost wiped out by a meteorite. And again, there's a lot of evidence for that. It's not just a woo-woo idea. There's a lot of evidence, tons of evidence that show a very clear story that about 13,500 years ago, there was an asteroid strike that just decimated the Earth and nearly wiped out the human species. And we've been recovering ever since. Just like if you have an individual human being who had childhood trauma in their youth, they may don't even fully remember it. Yet if they haven't integrated that and fully processed it, they will recreate that situation in their life going forward in order for the subconscious to integrate it. The psyche don't care. The psyche don't care about global warming. The psyche don't care about economics. The psyche don't care about the human species surviving. The psyche only cares about integration of its unconscious contents. That's all it cares about. And so I think that on a collective level, we may be projecting that now. And then it may just be realistic that we are waiting and waiting until it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, so we can actually have that near-death experience again in order to integrate that thing, right? So that's kind of my perspective, and that's why I'm just, I hold all of that with both, yes, let's focus and get together and integrate. It's all about the integration, but at the same time realizing what's really realistic and what's maybe really going on at a deep, deep, deep level that's been going for a very long time. That's my perspective of why it's taking so long. We may very well need to continue this pace for years or decades until the oceans rise and people are literally dying or being put up against death as actually meeting the event in order to really transform. Because as a third perspective, also in psychology, most people tend to operate that way. If there's a big change someone needs to make, oftentimes, if it's a really hard change, they'll usually procrastinate and wait until it's absolutely an emergency. We think it's an emergency now, but it's not. It's not directly in our face yet. We're seeing the weather changes. Some people are being affected directly, but when the mass of people are being, like when a majority of the people has it right up in their face, it's real time where they can't run from it, then it's really an emergency. And then we tend to emerge. And I'm optimistic. I think we will rise to the occasion. I think we're a highly adaptable species. I think that there's also a lot of intelligence in the psyche, that the psyche wouldn't give us something since they're gonna wipe us out. Life doesn't want life to wipe out. So I'm optimistic. And so I do tend to have that perspective that helps me have patience and just focus on doing the solutions right. Because some of the solutions we create today, they may not even span out until decades or maybe even centuries from now. The seeds we plant today may not sprout for a long time. So that's how I kind of frame it in my mind. That the work I'm doing in my life, I'm not necessarily thinking it's gonna all wrapped up in a nice little bow in this life. It may not. So that I keep that in mind, is that pace ourselves, is really do things right. Okay, that's all I have to say for now.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. My question wasn't, why is it taking us so long? My question is, why aren't we doing it? Different question.
Well, I
Why
think
are-
same
why
same
aren't
answer, and that
Yeah.
we are doing it. It's just taking a long
Yeah.
time.
Well, from my perspective, running Future Now Radio, I just get out there in the world and talk to all the change makers, and I'm blown away at how much is really, really going on that most people don't have a clue about. Most people here don't even have a clue about it. You know, we're here having conversations about a subject or two, but really there's millions of change makers out there happening now, all with the intention of creating life as life, and whatever that means. So I'm just, I'm an observer. I'm the show radio host, and I get to interview these incredible people that come in from, well, I don't know how they cross my path, but they do. And as I said before you came on, Michael, and hi, by the way, nice to see you again. That knowing what I know every day on these interviews I do, each person that comes on to do an interview deserves an Oscar award for what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're so huge in the game they're playing. It's amazing. And it just keeps happening over and over and over. But the thing that I mentioned is that when we interviewed Jamaica Stevens, she said that this whole movement is invisible to the world at large because it doesn't get any media coverage. And so what I said was, I'm so grateful for the job I have of interviewing these, torch carriers, even in a small way. They're still doing astonishing work. And what I'm grateful for is that I get to see that. The other day, a neighbor came in, and he'd just fallen and broken some ribs. And so he's been out of the hospital now for a little bit, and he's kind of back in action. He's one of the maintenance men here on the ranch. And he comes in, and he was all upset and really angry about what's going on in the news. The guy was just over the top with what's going on with Trump or what's going on with cults or and I said to him, dude, you're just had an accident. You're trying to repair your ribs here. Don't be getting your blood pressure up over something you can't do anything about. And this guy was a real person who just sits in front of the news and thinks that's real. And so anyway, I talked him down to, keeping him from getting his blood pressure all raised up and all that. I don't know if I can talk him into not watching the news, but here's my point. The news that I get every day from being on the front lines of humanity and interviewing these heroes, it's astonishing. And I'm so, so grateful that I can not only hear about these frontline people, but I talk to them. We have conversations, we do interviews together. And, I had 2 interviews last week, and I have, me, you guys know me, I don't usually have nothing to say. I usually have quite a bit to say. I've found through default that I'm kind of a good radio host because I think on my feet and I just kind of, get with the program and stuff. But I have to honestly say the 2 people I interviewed last week floored me so much. I didn't have anything to say. Ananda, imagine that, not having something to say. But I was stunned at the impact they're making on the planet, just stunned. And my co-host said, well, you were, we re-recorded a few things a few times, because we can do that. And he says, well, he says, weren't you on your game today, or what was going on? And I said, I was I was so in my game that I was blown away by the amount of effort being made by just 2 interviews we made last week. But that's multiplied millions and millions and millions. I will never have enough time on this planet to interview all the people out there making a difference. And so completing that with, I'm so grateful that I'm not stuck at home as an elder that watches the news and gets my blood pressure up when I'm trying to heal my broken ribs over what's going on in the world. I'm grateful that I don't see that side of the world. I only see the good. So that's my job every day. But the curiosity always comes up in me, is like all of these movements and alliances and promotions and all of that are happening. But my question was, what keeps us separate? I don't understand why the ICIC or something like that isn't fully functional on the planet, when you've got all these millions of people out there making such an astounding shift and change for our planet. Yet, when they were on the interview, they were a separate person from everything else going on. They had their own interview, they had their own passion, they had their own avenue of dealing with things, they have their own messages coming through. And yeah, I just really think that it's time we all literally funnel together something. But as I mentioned in my conversation, what are you willing to give up a little bit? You know, in a marriage, when you're in a marriage and you're in it, you have to come to neutral ground, to the middle somewhere, and someone's got to give up a little bit in order to get to the limelight in the middle. And so every day when I interview more and more people doing more and more astounding things on the planet, I just wonder, it's a question. I just wonder, what's keeping us separate? Really? I can't believe for a minute that these people have an ego that's keeping us separate, because they care too much about the planet, what's going on with that. They devote their entire lives to these kinds of changes. They're not selfish. They're not egotistical. They're not into it for themselves. They're certainly not into it for the money or the fame or the glory, you know? So I'm just curious. I'm very grateful for being alive at this time in history, because it has taken us thousands, maybe millions of years to get to this point. But I see it like, it's like I'm standing in a field of flowers that are just came out of the earth and are all ready to bloom right now, and the flowers are all different. They have different races and countries and languages and all kinds of things. And they're a diverse garden. There's lots of diversity in that garden, yet they're unified in that garden because they share the same soil, the same sun, the same rain. Something makes them unified. And I just think, frankly, it's time for us to be a unified human race. Not the same. Everybody keeps their passion, keeps their path, keeps their knowledge, keeps their wisdom, keeps their technology. They keep all that going. But we need to create a garden of unity and diversity, of acceptance. We need to work together, because, I'm seeing a lot of duplication from my perspective. Everything you talk about, Michael, technically, I see it all happening right around me. I live here with an inventor who's got all the answers to everything you're talking about. In fact, I wish sometime you two could have a conversation. But it's all there. It's all out there. The conversation is the same thing. I can hear the same conversation somewhere else. And anyway, I'm just happy I'm alive at this time. I'm happy that I don't have to believe or think that my only choices are sitting in front of the news stations. I'm grateful for all people like you in my life. And I'm just curious. I just wonder, like, well, why aren't we unified? Why isn't there an ICIC actually literally functioning? Why isn't there a platform that's already developed for all of these organizations to come together and share their databases and share their information and share their ideas and share their resources? And why isn't that funnel here? Beats me. Anyway, I'm about that funnel. I'll stand for that. And I'm all about, keeping the interviewing going on Future Now Radio. Get a chance, go check out some of the latest interviews. Really awesome stuff going on. But I love you guys, and I've got to go because I'm working on a mission here that has a deadline, and got to get that done.
All right,
So,
couple of folks have had their hands up for a while.
all right.
Yeah,
I can't see them from here, so.
One is Alchemy, followed by Kate. Go ahead, Alchemy.
Thanks. Just a quick point. I wanted to respond to Michael on
You're cutting out pretty bad there, dude.
communication of.
Yeah, you're cutting out real bad, Alchemy. I've got a proposal for you. Why don't you type it in, Alchemy, while Kate.
Recognize the message. If as it should be recorded, you play tonight. Okay, I'm gonna try this again. You take recording of. Yeah, take the front.
Okay, so I think.
Yeah, Brother Alchemy, we're having it
Yeah,
tough to.
he got my
Yeah.
message. He's gonna type it in. In the meantime, Kate, why don't you go ahead and and then we'll read what Alchemy types.
Well, as we're speaking about these blind spots, I think, yes, we get blinded by our historical trauma, but we also get blinded by these, our avenues of exploration, if you will. Because Ananda, I hear you. Like Julie Krull has this All Things Connected show, and for years, every week, she brings you this change maker that you're like, oh my. So my question becomes, why aren't we listening to the change makers and enacting some of these ideals that we're coming up with? And the other thing that was coming to me is that many of our, we all.
There's a bandwidth issue. People are
Yeah,
having a hard time sharing,
Yeah, Kate.
which is interesting to me.
Kate just broke up there. And let me read what Alchemy wrote. And now Alchemy is actually not here. So I'll wait for Alchemy to come back before. But anyway, one quick thought I have, and then Sir Roland also has his hand up, is Ananda, have you been mentioning on Future Now Radio about this meeting here and about what we're doing with ICIC? Because I think that's one part of the answer as to why, how do we come together? Okay, now Kate's back. Welcome back, Kate. And
a quick answer to that, Jamin, is yes, I have been promoting this chat here.
Awesome. Okay, great. Very, very glad to hear that. All right, Kate's back. Go ahead, carry on, Kate. And okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking my connection is not stable enough to know where I left off, and not just when Michael was speaking, I thought, yes, a lot of these decisions that we're making are generational decisions. They take a generation. Now we can look back and wish we'd have taken a generation to decide about some of the ways we have gone up to now. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Kate, I love you.
All righty. And Sir Roland has his hand up again. Go ahead, Sir Roland.
Alan, can you make that thing stop? Oh my God, I just don't like it. Or I
Yeah,
can go
me
to
either.
speaker view. I can go to speaker view, but if you, it was on hold for a while. I liked it.
All right. Yeah, Alan, if you can make the wormhole stop, that'd be great. And then I know, Ananda, you need to get rolling. So any last words before you do?
Just love you guys. I'm so grateful that, you know, this is an outlet for me, and I can, I see you all in that diverse garden, all growing together. Yeah, Alan, that's much better. Thank you. I love you all, guys. I gotta check out. My time is, my days are numbered. I'm leaving in 21 days.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
March 22nd, by the way, is when I'm leaving, which is the greatest of all holy days, the greatest of all injunctions of days. March 22nd. Look that up and what the meaning of that is. And that's the day the universe chose me to transplant from America to Peru. So I'm going to take that as a really heavy duty sign. It's also in conjunction with what's going on with the water ceremony and the spring equinox, and the planet alignment on that day is amazing. It's also a holy day for many spiritual people of the different faith beliefs, and powerful day. And that's the day I'm transplanting. But I'll be back on several times before I go. But today, I gotta go. Love you guys.
Love you, Ananda sister. Thanks so much for checking in. And
Yeah.
we'll see you soon. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ananda. Take care. All righty. I know Sir Roland had his hand up. And so whenever you want, Sir Roland. You know, it's really just kind of like an endless fractal, right? Because, you know, we are coming together. I mean, just look at us. We come together on a regular basis, and it's an open platform, and there's lots of other communities, but that are coming together. And yet at the same time, we continue on this accelerating, you know, the exponentials of destruction, exponential planetary overheating, the rise of, you know, fascism evolving into Nazism in the United States. That seems to be on an exponential tear. You know, exponential destruction of the biosphere, burning of forests, et cetera, et cetera. Just so many just horrific things that, you know, seem to be, and I believe are just incredible emergencies. So it's like, you know, I feel the frustration intensely. You know, why aren't we, you know, coming together around feeding everyone, around cooling the planet through SRM? It's just like, what's the holdup, right? And it's just, it seems like it's taking way too long. But I just really pray that there is a benevolent exponential bringing us together and bringing together the necessary concentrations of people and effort and resources so that we can get these things done in time, whatever that means. And Michael, as you pointed out, which is a really scary thought, it may take, you know, actual significant you know, meters of sea level rise, wiping out entire coastal communities in order for us to actually wake up. Anyway, that's my contribution to the talking feather. Go ahead, Michael. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could also be, it's a funny question. I keep hearing the question a lot, and there's nothing wrong with the question. I can ask the question too, but I don't get stalled on the question. I feel like sometimes we're getting stalled on that question, and that's fine. If people want to just ask that question over and over and over again, we can. But then it's just like, well, meanwhile, everything's happening that's happening. You know, whatever is, it is. It's just what it's amazing. Whatever is just is. And if we just get in alignment with that, then we'll be more coherent than we were if we were questioning why things are the way they are. So, you know, not to say we can't question. I question things all the time too, but you know, I just, for me personally, I like that, you know, everyone has their own balance too of, you know, asking questions and why are things are, and then we do things about it. You know, we either say what we want to say, or we do projects or something. We do something to try to change our lives, to try to change the lives of others, you know, whatever it is. And we each have our own balance of whatever that is. So I think, you know, my sense, what's most fulfilling for me is cultivating my own balance. And only I know what that balance is, you know. Sometimes I just want to relax and go skiing or watch some movies with my girlfriend. And other times I want to be really active and try to push time and space forward and the limited amount of time I have in this life, you know. And then I just find my own balance, you know. And then, you know, yeah, if from a philosophical perspective, I see this question of, you know, why aren't we more unified and separate? I get where some of that's coming from. I mean, we have a lot of extreme diversity in the world. You know, we have such diversity that people are killing each other over religious beliefs. Isn't that ironic that people have these spiritual religious beliefs that are different, and then they kill each other over those spiritual beliefs? Wow. That's some extreme diversity there, that maybe we can do much less of that. We don't need that kind of extreme diversity, but otherwise we do want diversity. And diversity and separation kind of come, you know, I don't know what we mean by separation or not, but, you know, I think everything is literally connected, literally at the atomic level, everything is absolutely connected, couldn't be more connected, even though we have this apparent separation in bodies. Because why were we put in bodies then? Why aren't we just floating around in a big cloud, a nebulous cloud of intelligence, you know, as one unified thing? We are embodied in unique individual units for a reason. Evolution likes both connectivity and diversity. Connectivity and diversity together. It's here. It's happening. So I just think that in my opinion, that question is often just driven from a sense of wanting peace and rest, because life is kind of challenging. Life is challenging. The earth is really challenging right now. It's been challenging for a long time. Evolution's always been a rough game. And I think that question just coming from a sense of wanting to have some sense of resolve, a final rest. That's my sense of where it's coming from, but that it's not necessarily the case, you know, that life and reality is really complex, and things are always changing, and there's just levels of diversity on top of diversity. So in some sense, I don't see it as necessarily stopping. I see that it's wild. You know, there's a sense of wilderness to it. Like if we go out into the forest, out into the wilderness, you know, are things separate out there, or are they not? You know, I would see the same thing. It's just like the forest ecosystem is a highly connected place, and yet you have diversity, and you have wolves that chase rabbits and kill them, and you have all kinds of destruction happening in the forest too. It's just balance of creation and connectivity and diversity and destruction all happening in the wild. And yet one of our strongest critiques of the human species is that we separate ourselves from nature so much. And so we have these neat little boxes, and we want to feel like everything's just kind of perfect in our little boxy houses and our little boxy jobs and our little boxy job titles and our little boxy marriages and all this stuff. Everything's just so perfectly contained. And yet we want to like have that sense of containment around something, when really I think we're returning back to the wilderness in a new way. I don't think we're going to give up our technology. I think we're going to go forward in a really wild, strange human way of creating a lot of culture and technology and art and fabrication of culture, basically all these artifacts of culture, unlike any other species on earth where this human species does this. I think we're going to continue to do that, but that we're going to return to the essence of what it's like to be wild. which is unpredictable, which is sometimes chaotic, which is, it's just life really thriving on itself. I think we want that. And I think we're getting back to that, actually. I think that's a lot about what the decentralized paradigm is about. And that's what we're starting to feel, is that things are getting a little bit out of control. Oh no. Guess what? That's the way it's always been. We've never been in control. Now we're getting out of control. And some kind of, I think humanity is moving some kind of more like state of follied control, where we're just going to kind of like stumbling to save ourselves as we go and making beauty along the way. I think that's it. I think it's going to be a really wild time in the future. And it's called the new wilderness. It's a new kind of wild. I think it's exciting. All right, I'm done ranting.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, and Sir Roland had his hand up. Go ahead, Sir Roland, and then I've got a comment. Go ahead.
God, what an exciting conversation for the last hour and a half or so. Let me go way back. So Jamin, everything that you say sounds great to me. I'm here to learn. And I will contribute when I can. And let me make this truth, because I'm very close to Ed Schein, who gave us the word culture. But before it was called environment, and we had a big conversation for 3, 4, 5 years. And finally Schein won out. Jamin, you are the culture. Okay? Of this organization, you are the culture, says Ed Schein. He told us that in Indonesia when he addressed 1,000 people with this live a few years ago. The second thing I have to say is that words matter. David Cooperrider was in the video when world unity was first introduced. He's one of my 2 living gurus. But that's what he says, words matter. And so I suggest we drop the word project, because a project has a beginning and an end. And words that we might replace it with are process or social network conversations or decentralized platform that Jamin has mentioned. And so that's my 2 cents in that. And then what was this note? I can't read it. Oh, yeah, it's a very important point. In 2 years, I'm projecting, from what I'm reading and hearing from my guy, Garrett Leonardo, is that we will have tools and technology in 2 years like we absolutely never had before. And so we will only have more intense conversations like this, but without any technical difficulties. And Michael, you said, oh, people will get serious when people are dying. Hey, they're dying now. Texas, 5 people just died because of global warming. 5 people. They're suing now. They're charging because the power companies charged one family $19,000 for their electricity during a couple of days. And so they're dying in the Northeast because of climate change, and for the first time in the history of the United States, we had 40 inches of snow. Okay, they're dying in California because of the fires. People have died. And so I only sense, I'm a transformation guy. I heard the word change maker many times. I'm one of the original 100. There's only a couple of us living left, Barbara Bunker, and myself. And this is what we have to say. We have to say the transformation. Cotter from Harvard says this explicitly, is a jerk into the future. And the reason it's not working is that there's no sense of urgency and people give up. We've got to be persistent, consistent. My last comment is this, is I get a rush just thinking of the name Shivananda. One of his 500 most famous books is called Concentration and Meditation. We need to start to concentrate on what we're doing. And that concentration, that mental focus, will give us our answers. Yes, I'm optimistic too. I think Jamin's solar stuff is miraculous. I think it's got potential. But what I want to end by saying is what is all important is for each to experience our own enlightenment, our own joy, and to be like Marco is. Marco's working on it. We need to be working on that every day, 24 hours a day, and it'll finally come because we're in the age of Aquarius. Michael with your black hair, a young protester. Hey, I was protesting in Chicago, in the 60s. And so that's all I have to say. I think enough. Amen, hallelujah, Hare Krishna, Waheguru, Yahweh, Muhammad, Jamin. See you. I'm here. I'm going to listen now.
Thank you, Sir Roland. All right, Jamin is next in the queue, followed by whoever raises their hand next. Here, let me add to this whole conversation by first going back to the image that I put on the screen originally, and then taking it someplace. Okay, here's this image where we have this decentralized platform with all of its different layers, including the Zoomosphere and this meeting right here, empowering concentrations, and those concentrations in turn empowering the evolution of solutions, which in turn will help empower even greater concentrations in a virtuous cycle around what I'll just call the right solutions, the most urgent solutions, the solutions that gain, mass appeal for very good reason. And so just consider for a moment that we start from the future and we say, okay, let's say 50 years from now or 100 years from now, assuming we make it through this bottleneck of exponential climate change and exponential destruction of the biosphere, imagine that humanity is able to survive and maybe even thrive. But in any case, we've made it, right? Let's just say 100 years from now. 100 years from now, we will look back on this time, 2021, 2022, and say, wow, up until this moment, humanity was going down, 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 down. It was a downward spiral. And, and then suddenly they were able to turn it around. The history books will write about the turnaround, and it will write about, what exactly we concentrated on, how we concentrated together, through which layers of what I'm just calling the decentralized platform, and around what, topics, themes, solutions, etc. And the history books will write about ultimately the strategy that we took to get out of the death spiral and onto a new path towards sustainable regenerative life and saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. So from that lens of history, looking back from the future, the way I see it, to kind of give a synthesis to that, you've got the platform. On top of that platform, we're in search of the right strategy. Once we find this right, think of it as an initial seed crystal with a nod to Ice 9, Kurt Vonnegut, Cat's Cradle. And if you don't know about it, just raise your hand and I'll tell you. But imagine that we are able to find this seed crystal of the right platform, right? Zoomosphere combined with whatever else, a universal calendar. We've been talking about that for a while. More on that in a little bit from Kiko Lab. But imagine we're able to find this right platform, this minimum viable product of a platform that's the platform that's necessary to support this emergent strategy to get out of here, to get out of this death spiral and onto a path towards life. Imagine that combination is the Ice 9 seed crystal, that seed crystal that can now grow exponentially in terms of attracting more people to the conversations, again, on the platform about the strategy, the emergent strategy, which will of course evolve and evolve and evolve and get much more specific and evolve many more facets and components. But it all has to start from a fundamental seed crystal of a platform and a strategy. You could think of it as a solution strategy. And that seed crystal will in turn attract a concentration of humanity, which I think, is one way of articulating what Ananda was saying, why aren't we doing it? And what I think she's saying is, why aren't we concentrating around a single platform, around a single strategy on a particular platform, being a combination of layers, as I've been talking about. I believe that's inevitable. And the only question is, can we do it fast enough? Can we get it done in time? Can we cool the planet fast enough to avert just an exponential runaway decimation of life and overheating that we are, in kind of the early stages of the exponential, or the mid stages, perhaps more accurately, of the exponential you know, an exponential has three phases, flat line, knee, and vertical. It feels like we're in the knee of the exponential right now, beckoning on vertical. Once this thing goes vertical, it's kind of game over, right? So the only question is, can we reach this crucial concentration of people concentrating around a strategy, a winning strategy for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, upon a platform of, you know, communication, collaboration, coordination, right? That for me is the fundamental question. Can we get this done in time, right? And it feels to me like from the platform side. So let's just think of it in terms of the ICE9 crystal that we need to get this whole ball rolling is a combination of platform, strategy, and concentration of people. The right platform with the right strategy on top of it will attract the, you know, initial snowball of people that's finally big enough that you can actually push it down the mountain and it can grow and grow and grow and grow and continue to snowball, right? So again, the three elements: platform, strategy, critical mass of people, right? And I wake up every day thinking about this. And I think that perhaps the meta strategy, and here's what I mean by that. The meta strategy is that strategy which in turn will result in the ICE9 crystal, the initial ICE9 crystal being formed. And the meta strategy that occurs to me is to first harmonize around this intention of getting the right seed crystal combination of platform, strategy, and initial concentration of people, right? I think we have parts of it right here, but we certainly don't have I don't feel like we have the ICE9 crystal here. I think we have the meta strategy. The meta strategy that I've articulated is what it is. What do you think? Is that the right meta strategy? Or am I totally missing the mark? Is there some other meta strategy, right? In terms of platform, you know, we've been co-creating and developing elements of that platform right here. The press conference was one part of that platform. It feels to me like the folks who are getting closest to the platform right now are the folks in Kiko Lab that meets every Monday, starting at noon Pacific time. And that's, I mentioned them in the email that I sent out last night. It feels to me like they're getting close on the platform part of it. And, you know, part of their getting close is connecting with other groups. But it feels to me like their platform, which includes process, right? And structures, databases, a form of universal calendar, et cetera. Anyway, it feels to me like they're closest on the platform piece of anything I've seen, and I certainly haven't seen it all. In terms of the strategy to go on top of that platform, I feel like right here in this room is the closest I've seen to a strategy, a winning strategy for humanity, for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. We start with feeding everyone plant-based foods, start in Los Angeles where it can grow exponentially and where, you know, essentially all the public parks are fully functional 365 days a year because of the, you know, the livable human climate that they have there, as opposed to northern Minnesota or Cleveland, Ohio, where it's either scorching hot or you're buried under 10 feet of snow all 90% of the time, and there's only a few days of the year that you can actually go out to a park and have it livable. So again, Los Angeles, for a whole bunch of reasons. Also, it's the media capital of the world. It's a great concentration of people, tremendous diversity, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And I don't particularly like LA, you know, per se. I'm just saying it's got all the elements for getting the food thing off the ground. But I digress. Let me not digress. The strategy is really fundamentally, you know, two fundamental phases. One is feeding everyone, and in the process, building a huge movement of people meeting on the platform, which is the other fundamental piece. Platform, strategy, people. I believe feeding everyone will bring the people together because then people, it's just, you won't be able to ignore it. Ananda talks about these millions of different projects and change makers and all that. That's great. We need concentration, and I think food will give us the concentration. So feeding everyone, in turn, bringing more and more people onto the right platform. Again, thank you, Kiko Lab. I think they're the closest to it. So the right platform. So again, back to the strategy. Food first, uniting people, and then people united around food. We take it all the way to the last corners of the earth. Make sure everyone is fed as the first crucial phase in ensuring that all human needs, all basic human needs, become basic human rights. And we take care of humanity. That's humanity putting on her own oxygen mask so that she can then turn to her mother, Mother Earth, and put on her oxygen mask, starting with SRM. So food first as the V for Vendetta domino track for meeting all basic human needs, liberating humanity from the all-day monopoly game of individual hoarding for individual survival, the Hunger Games, basically. That V for Vendetta domino path of human needs becoming human rights, liberating humanity, enabling humanity to kick off the next V for Vendetta domino train, which is saving Mother Earth. And the first domino there, just like the first domino for human needs was food, the first domino for saving life on Earth, for saving Mother Earth, is solar radiation management. And that's the essentials of the strategy. 2 domino trains, right? Both of which have a very clear first domino. And of those 2 domino trains, one comes first, followed by the other. The one that comes first is human needs. Humanity, put on your own oxygen mask first, so that you can then turn to the woman sitting next to you in the airplane and help her with her oxygen mask. That woman happens to be your mother, Mother Earth. There's a strategy. Human needs, starting with food, followed by Mother Earth's needs, starting with cooling, starting with SRM. That's it. That's the strategy. The platform, again, Kiko Lab. What are the fundamental elements of the platform? How to have effective conversations, right? The culture of those conversations, the databases supporting that network of conversations. And that's it. That's the tightest articulation I've ever heard. It happens to be coming out of my mouth. It needed to come out of someone's mouth. But that's the tightest articulation I have ever heard of what I believe is. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, Jamie. Can you repeat that? I missed that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'd love to repeat
those points
because it needs to be repeated. And in fact, I'll draw pictures as I go because I think that will help bring it to life. Ladies and gentlemen, a concise articulation of a new story for humanity and how we're going to save ourselves.
Well, Jamin, I just wanted to get those 3 points. I mean, you're welcome to draw pictures too, but if you could just quickly repeat those 3 points.
Yeah, real easy. So first domino train is called human needs, right? Humanity putting her oxygen mask on first, and the first domino in that train is food, and specifically plant-based food for all. Okay. You know, after that,
the platform you're just talking about. I'm sorry, I just
yeah.
you said the platform had these 3 points. That's what I was talking about.
Okay, gotcha.
The cure, whatever it's called.
Kiko Lab. So the platform has, you know, multiple points, but among the most important are, you know, support, just native support for the emergent network of conversations, right? And that has a whole bunch of, you know, basic elements like search, filtering, recommendations, transcription, et cetera, right? Elements therein also include, you know, the culture of these conversations. Let's see. But, you know, so anyway, but ultimately this whole platform supporting collective superintelligence, that upon that platform, there is going to be a winning strategy. It will ultimately support a winning strategy. And I believe that it's really these two elements combined. Both of these are essential as a unit. So everything you see in this picture right here needs to go as a unit. That's what I'm calling the seed crystal of ICE9, right? That can then propagate and grow and grow and grow and grow because it has the essential elements for growth, right? This is what will attract the critical concentration of people saying, aha, hallelujah, this is it. You know, this is the winning strategy, and this is that winning platform that can support both the winning strategy and the initial critical mass of people. So these three elements, platform, strategy, and critical mass of people participating in it, that equals those three things, right? 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3. That is the ICE9 seed crystal, which can then grow. You take away any one of those three atoms, right? Let's just call them ABC. Take away any one of those three atoms and you do not have a self-replicating ICE9 seed crystal. It's just not complete, right? Hydrogen alone is not enough. You need all ABC, and then it can just self-propagate and grow. Why? Because it attracts more people who then refine the strategy, break it down into its elements, into its, into the first two critical domino trains, which one is human needs and the other is, Gaia's needs. And both of them have a first domino. Both of them are a series of dominoes. The first one in human needs is food. The first one in Gaia's needs is SRM for planetary cooling, right? And all of this that I'm saying right now, everything you see on the screen right here, all of this is the beginnings of a new story for humanity. And that is the meme, which can go viral, right? And self-propagate. That's the essential ICE9 crystal. And then it goes from a little speck, just like in the book Cat's Cradle, to the entire ocean, the entire hydrosphere, utterly transformed, including all of humanity. Right?
Yeah, can I comment on this?
Please.
I just want to just point out, this in contrast to much of the other conversation that's happened here today and other days is that, that culture piece is key, because it's like, I think that is a winning formula. I've seen this already before. It's all about, anyone who's in social media today, any of these young entrepreneurs know that if you can just create a community, you've got a business. Create a community of 1,000 dedicated fans, and you're going to have 10,000 people in there, but you'll have 1,000 that are dedicated, right? And if you have that, you can just sell it. You can put T-shirts up. You can give you can do anything. You can just provide a service or a product, and you're going to make a business, and you're going to have a thriving community that loves that. It's synergistic, meaning the community is going to love it. They're going to give back. There's going to be value exchange. They're going to be inspired to do things, whatever kind of thing you do. So that's the basic form. You create a community, but then when you create that community, it's got to be scoped to a certain culture. This is contrast to what I keep hearing in some of these conversations. Like, well, why can't we all come together, and why are we so separate? Why are we not unified? Well, I think it's just natural that we're not in some ways. So it's like, we want to, if you want to achieve a community, you want to clarify that culture. You want to say, we are mostly this, but we're also not a lot of that, with some overlap maybe. But if we're trying to be everything, we're trying to be the network of networks and that kind of thing. I've seen it fail again and again and again and again and again because of that. You need to have some definition. You need to have some clarity. Scope what we're talking about, scope what we're doing, decide upon it, clarify it, stick with it consistently. If we're getting wishy-washy, then it's just gonna peter out, So, I agree. And they're even in the scope of the change makers. There are cultures and subcultures of subcultures, even in the change makers. There's just so much diversity. So you just, somehow, however you have to do it, we just, create a culture, define it, declare it, saying we believe this, we don't believe that, right? Not everyone's going to like it. Some people will. That's just the way it is, So then you can actually go somewhere, because there's plenty of people out there who will never believe there's a climate crisis. They'll never believe it, even if we solve it, and even 50 years from now, they'll look back, go, no, that was still fake, whatever. They're just going to. It doesn't matter. We don't need to convince them. We don't need to convince each other that we have to be a unified culture. Let's just be who we are and be it and do it. And then, that's how things went out. I see that, like, I think in this conversation, we have a culture, but what even is a culture? There's different, there's cultures that just hang together. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's cultures that, they're, like, take the traditional sense of a culture, like the American culture, right? We can, push out all these qualities about it. The American culture, we like fried chicken and beer and football and all these things.
Yeah.
That are kind of like, yeah. And then, but also the American culture, like we've created things like a defining definition, defining feature of the American culture is that we've caused a lot of trouble in the world, but we've innovated a lot. We created the space program, we created the internet, we created Hollywood. I mean, we've been an incredibly productive culture, right? An innovative culture, and I'm very influenced like that. I tend to think that way. So when I think of a culture, I think it's a culture that's, producing, it's creating, it's autopoiesis, it's continually recreating itself towards something, but it's within a certain, theme or trend. So, this culture I see here, what I'm seeing lately is we're talking a lot about why aren't we moving fast enough? Why aren't we focused enough? Well, why don't we focus then? Someone decide and choose a focus and stick with it. That's it. Then we'll have a focus. But if we keep talking about not having a focus, that's our focus.
No. Look.
And
Yeah.
And that's not a focus I can hang.
Well, I think we've got it, Michael. And in fact, I've just drawn a picture. I've just drawn a picture of it now on the screen, and this sums it up.
But I think. Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just I know that sometimes we have more than one focus. So sometimes we get, like, I like to focus on the strategy and plan making, but also I think what we keep missing is implementation of the plans. That's also, if that's not in our focus, is stepping an idea into reality. And the actual concrete steps it does to have that happen, then also we're going to dilute our focus, because the plan has to be moved. The plan can always keep planning. The plan will always keep going. But if the plan's not meeting reality, then it's also going to dwindle out. So, like, what's the actual plan?
Okay, I want to
for
answer
coding,
I
for
wanna
coding,
answer-
you know, for
wanna
actually,
answer.
or yeah, go ahead.
Because what I keep hearing you saying is, hey, we're missing this, we're missing this. Let me fill in the blank of what we're missing, and let me get a hallelujah from you. And then Kate has her hand up. So Michael, get ready to scream hallelujah. Okay, just get your vocal cords ready. All right, here it is. So just like I said from up here, the critical elements of the ICE9 crystal are starter community, starter strategy, and starter platform. They will all evolve, right? But that's the ICE9 crystal. Here it is in a box. Platform. And what I'm saying is now we've got 2 out of the 3 pieces. Check, check, check. Platform, Kikolab. Strategy, the one we've just articulated here in the conversation, you know, with the 2 rows of dominoes combined with the rest of this picture, because this is all part of the strategy, right? It's like a fractal. Community, we need a starter community. That's the one missing element. We are a platform with a strategy in search of a community. Now, if we start with the seed communities of Kikolab and the conversation, right? Let's just start with that. Kikolab plus our community here, the conversation. Imagine we merge those 2, right? With this strategy and with this platform, then I think it can grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Right? So I think we've actually got the elements we need of the ICE9 crystal. I'm still waiting for the hallelujah, Michael, and then Kate also has her hand up. But Kate, please wait for Michael's hallelujah, because I want to get past the hallelujah milestone from Michael.
It didn't quite land with me. Where we need, you're saying that we know we need a community.
Yep.
Right.
What I'm saying is that the initial you read Cat's Cradle, right?
No.
Okay, so here's how it works. In Cat's Cradle, there's this physicist who came up with ICE9. You know how there's different phases of water. Water in its liquid form is actually polymeric.
Okay.
Then there's different phases of crystalline ice. Well, he came up with this new configuration of water, this new crystalline structure, such that it was essentially like a hard plastic, which was solid at room temperature. You have to heat it above, I don't know, 90 degrees C or close to boiling in order to get it to melt. But once he had this first crystal, it was self-replicating. And what happened was he took it down to some Caribbean, his son took it down to some Caribbean island and teamed up with the dictator of the island, who then did an air show. And the bottom line is, sorry for the spoiler, but the crystal dropped into the ocean and propagated, and the whole world essentially became this plastic, including most of humanity, all of sea life, and basically most of life just stopped. Okay, so it's kind of a dystopian representation, but the point is that if you have the right crystal or the wrong crystal, it can propagate. Nazism was the wrong crystal that propagated throughout Germany and is now propagating throughout the United States. But
I get it. Yeah, I get the metaphor. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that first crystal, it can be a microscopic speck, but it must contain the following 3 elements: platform, think minimum viable product in your speak or our speak, minimum viable product platform, minimum viable strategy, which I have as, you know, the human side and the Gaia side, both represented as domino chains, and the first domino respectively is food and SRM. Okay, so that's strategy. 2 domino chains, 2 first dominoes, food and SRM. And the third is a minimum viable community, right? And you know, how do you get to the first 1,000, like what you were saying? Well, to get to the first 1,000, you get to the first 100. How do you get to the first 100? Get to the first 10. How do you get to the first 10? Get to the first 2 folks taking a bong hit together and saying, whoa, we should do this, right? The 2 Steves creating Apple, or Zuck and whoever, the Brazilian dude creating Facebook. So anyway, I think we've got the minimum viable all 3. And I'm saying this for the first time, and I'm going to keep saying it until I hear you say hallelujah. Unless you have a better first 3 or first 4 or whatever. But I'm saying platform, strategy, community. Once we get those first three that are actually the right ones, hence ready to take off, because here's the basic idea. People will be invited. They'll hear about, hey, there's this really great community, and they meet, whether it's on Zoom platform, not that this is the whole of the platform. Kiko Lab has the other elements of the platform, including the culture. They've got a freaking amazing culture, and it's a culture that's now being codified, written down through rules, finger symbols, gestures, and all this. That's part of their magic secret sauce. And part of my big realization today, I was trying to do it all here, right? We were trying to create the everything bagel right here. And then I finally realized, wait a second, there are other groups that have other essential ingredients. I think we've got the right strategy here. After years of talking for dozens of hours per week on Zoom, we finally have something to show for our efforts, which is the right strategy, but also the right insights into the ICE9, minimum seed crystal that can take off exponentially. Platform, strategy, community. And having hung with the Kiko Lab community yesterday, they've got a really nice critical mass community, which combined with our critical mass, some of us did a field trip over there yesterday. Kate was there too. Here we are. We have a minimum viable community, strategy, and platform all together. I henceforth proclaim the initial ICE9 seed crystal. Michael, you're on cue. Say hallelujah.
Hallelujah. But it's not,
Yes.
Jamin, it's for me to really say hallelujah with a very deep, authentic, divine exclamation. What you're saying, that I get what you're saying. This concept of these components is great. I feel like that's already been clear to us for a while. Platform, community, strategy. And so it's like the hallelujah for me comes when there's traction, it's like when I'm like, where does Kiko, like when we're on Kiko, I can look at the Kiko website, I can read about it. How do we get there? What does it look like when we are there? I don't even know. Like, imagine we go back 50 years ago to, let's go back to 1978 or something. And we're telling people, man, there's this thing in the future called Facebook. It's this perfect crystal thing. It's going to change so much. It's going to just blow your mind. They can't even fucking imagine Facebook. They have no fucking concept. All they know is there are 3 or 4 television stations, their cord telephone, their brand new microwave oven, which is the big fad. That's what's exciting, is the microwave oven. That's the big fucking deal, is the microwave oven. Okay. And now we're telling them about Facebook. And they're like, Faces book, what? All these people are what? They can't even conceive of the internet. They can't even conceive. So I'm just saying, I don't know what Kiko, I see the Kiko website. I understand, like, it looks great. I think we've been aware for a while. I don't understand how that's the platform. I don't understand, like, when we're there and there's more people speaking in a coherent way, speaking as if they're more excited about where we're going than wondering about where we're not going. That's when I say hallelujah. That's what, authentically, that's when I say hallelujah.
Yeah. So this is a pre-hallelujah moment. And hallelujah will come on Monday when we all go to the Kiko Lab meeting starting at noon Pacific time.
Okay.
So please, everyone, mark your calendar, noon Pacific time. And I am going to, between now and then, I'm going to say, hey, Kiko folks, check it out. Here's the ICE9 seed crystal I propose. You've got 1/3 of it. We've got another 1/3 of it, and the final 1/3 of it will be composed of our 2 communities coming together, plus inviting other communities, and spread the word. And let's just get a buttload of people into the Kiko meeting on Monday, and let it happen there. right? Let it take
Yeah,
on.
I have to say I like that. I like that Kiko's focused on what? They're fucking focused on collective intelligence. And I like that a lot.
Love you.
Because I feel like that I've been wanting that to be our focus. Like not just, yeah. I think that should be our focus. I think we should declare that as our culture and our focus. That's the culture I want to be part of. And just focusing on collective intelligence, understanding it, all of us understanding, all of us researching, all of us wondering about collective intelligence, all of us just designing for collective intelligence, all of us developing for collective intelligence, talking about collective intelligence. I think that's the thing to do, because not many people are. And I'm convinced, and I know other people that James and I know you are too, that collective intelligence is a meta solution. Collective intelligence is already here. We're already collectively intelligent. We're just going to get more collectively intelligent. So, let's focus on that. I've been proposing that for a while. So I think it is a hallelujah that we're going to have a meeting with Kiko.
That's it.
At least that's a step. That's a definitive move that this is what we're about. We're not aligning with McDonald's. We're not aligning with Kmart. We're not aligning with there's so many things going on. We could be aligning with even green initiatives. We could be aligning with the Green Forest Initiative or the Rainforest Initiative. That's all fine. People do that. I want to align with collective intelligence as a primary focus. So I think that is definitely a hallelujah.
Beautiful. We got it. Okay. I got to help my mother-in-law into the house up the stairs. Carry on. We are recording unless somebody wants me to pause recording.
I got a jet too. I got another meeting coming up. So I'll look forward to that meeting on Monday.
Beautiful. Monday at noon. I'll send everybody the link. All right.
Okay.
I'll be back in like 5 minutes, literally. I just got to get my mother-in-law into the house. We're going to continue recording unless somebody asks me to pause. Anyone asks me to pause, and we'll pause. Carry on, and I'll be back. But feel free to carry on.
All right.
And hey, Michael, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for the hallelujah. All right. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody. See you in a minute.
The pre-hallelujah. Oh, darn, I wanted to say something. So you go, James, and I'll rattle on while you go. Help Patricia.
Rattle on it, and then somebody summarize for me when I get back. That'll be fine. Okay. See you all in a few minutes.
I should even look at gallery view to see who I'm talking to. I'm talking to Sir Roland. And Alan changed. Thank you so much for changing that. Hypnotic photo. So I went to the Chico Lab meeting, or however you say it, Chico Lab. But I could not be really attentive. But I think Michael will really appreciate Lauren and what they're doing over there. But in a lot of ways, it felt like the formation stages, that the cohesion will even just get more so over time, as we have evidenced here. And I suggest the third leg on this seed crystal is the indigenous and ancestral cultural wisdom that is coming into fruition. As we know, we've had Brother Owl come on here and speak about what he and the Lenape are doing. And I suggest that is only a glimpse, as when Brother Phil brings his Ewana, which means to weave in Spanish, collective, together, they represent 87 million people. But it's point out that only 6.9 of those 87 million live on Turtle Island. It's people in New Zealand and Australia and South America and Africa who really represent the majority of this indigenous. And indeed, March 28th, I believe, will be the in the old energy, the grand opening, the revealing of the ancestral wisdom, the center for ancestral and indigenous wisdom. And whenever you hear Chief Phil gather, and now he's become such a colleague together with John Raymer, you can feel the allies just gathering and gathering and gathering. I know like Marco and Christopher, I guess I should open my eyes. No, you're still not talking to anyone. But, we've taken a few field trips to this Martin Luther King Beloved Community Weekend and witnessed this in action, you know, to just punctuate what Michael Bio was saying, being this new structure that moves and changes with not such rigidity that we're locked into that egoic place where we can't can't see beyond our project because you know it's our project and we've put a whole lifetime effort into it, and look, it's amazing. You know, yeah, I hear Ananda, you know I'm amazed at and almost everyone you hear. The one I love are the humblest. Like there's this woman, Rose, that showed up on the fire. Oh my gosh. Every day, Tony and Rose have a new song that they've written themselves. And they either come with guitar or drums. Or anyway, back to the Awana Collective. The Awana Collectivo represents 87 million people. Only 6.9 million indigenous, of which are of Turtle Island. And that doesn't include us, the Rainbow family. And I think that's where we come in. There's a whole lot of talk about bridging the divide. And, you know, I recall, if Christopher's in earshot, he'll recall this night. We were here inauguration night. All the shenanigans is going on and we were here. And it felt like divine appointment that Pato and Antoinette were here, and we just were immersed in their energy for a couple of hours. And then when they left, you know, Marco, through the magic of technology, took us on to even further speeches that the man had mostly brought back from historical times. Like one was a king in Jordan or Turkey in 1913, and just those Rumi-esque words that potentiate the possibility space through centuries, you know, those words that we hear that ring in our ears of those thoughts of liberation. Oh, Jamin's back. I open my eyes and I see Jamin's back, so I could be done. I hope you heard that I suggest that the third leg of the Ice Nine crystal is the Awana Collectivo, because so many of the brethren, Brother Phil represents 87 million people. 6.9 live on this continent. The rest of them have your soul in your heart. The South American space, the New Zealand, the Aboriginal, the African. And that's what we know we need to embrace, I feel. I just think that.
And what name did you give that community? The Owanawa?
Well, I don't know. Have you been since Brother Phil brought the Enlightening Our Way together, and then it culminated, you know, with this, what was the event called in January? And well, you know, it was the event time between the Martin Luther King and Gandhi. That time they called it this 6 weeks of peace. And so it culminated this weekend with the beloved community gathering once again. And Phil on February 6th did this rebirthing ceremony. I don't know if you caught wind of that, but it was exquisite and beautiful. They did like a re-imprinting. You were brought into the earth and then you were greeted by all of the elements. You were sang to by a grandmother and a grandfather, and then a mother and a father who cared. It was just like, whoa. And the beginning of that sacred earth process, they're doing a 4-year ceremony. I'm calling it Collective Sundance. But the first year they're taking you through infancy and alignment with the water. And the next will be the alignment of fire and youth in the youth. And then we move into earth and the adult part. And then adulthood, elderhood is the air. So 4 years of teaching us how to live. And, you know, when you talk about platforms and I think it's a vehicle. And like Michael Gaio was saying, we have to live this vehicle to the best of our ability. And when we unify, indeed, there's amazing things can happen. But I think about, like, you know, Brother Phil and that whole South American contingency of indigenous people that live close to the earth. I feel like that's the salvation, truly. Once we appreciate the earth, and, you know, like, oh, I got a pond project here at my little place in Ojai. I'm so, you know, happy to have that to beautify, and that becomes, so I'm just kind of rambling, I guess. I'm taking up space. No one was here, so, you know, when it's a rolling, I put him to sleep. So
Now that's an accomplishment.
Mm.
No, good stuff.
Or I would probably, yeah, I would take that as almost not an accomplishment and not a compliment, because if you can stimulate Sir Roland's neurons, but, you know, maybe it is. I'm feeling kind of good that I can relax his neurons enough that he feels. No words are needed, because truly, that's the place we need to get to. More of a, you know, I know everybody, as Ananda was thinking, bring all of your things. And I'm thinking, leave all of your things. The best thing we could do would be get out of the rain. Simply power down immediately. Stop our extractive ways. Stop our poison and pollute ways. And begin to, you know, walk our talk. And I know we're doing it, though. We're planting beautiful seeds, and we're planting trees, and it needs to happen now, though, you know, and I feel the urgency in my soul. I can't take the consumption of the caterpillar. I'm almost like, I cannot be a caterpillar anymore. I cannot generate another mountain of waste in this short lifetime. Please, please, let's do it differently. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate sister. Love it, love it. So I love what you're saying about the community. I know and love Brother Phil, and I think he's, you know, he's doing amazing work bringing community together. He and many other folks. And so amen to that community piece. What do you think about the other two pieces? The platform, the strategy, and then the community comes together on the platform in support of the strategy, not just in support of the strategy, but in evolution of the strategy, because the strategy is going to evolve. The platform is going to evolve. The community is going to evolve and grow, but we need kind of the starter three components. You know, in the technology sector, we talk about the minimum viable product, right? Here I've got, I don't know, whatever it is, the iPhone 10 or 11 or whatever the heck it is. But, you know, there was first the iPhone 1, and that was preceded by the rotary phone, right? Speaking of the 1970s. So, you know, the rotary phone was the initial. I grew up with the rotary phone. I can still see the rotary phone in my dad's living room. The red indestructible Ma Bell rotary phone. I love that thing. And so many great conversations on that. That was the minimum viable product for telephony, right? Was the rotary phone. So we need the platform, the minimum viable platform, the minimum viable strategy, right? I think that's an essential piece, because you get on these big meetings, you know, with different groups, this and that, Brother Phil, and so many people are talking about so many different things. What's the strategy? We need a strategy that can actually be implemented, right? That can grow exponentially. So I'm saying we got a V for Vendetta strategy. The first one is this.
That's what you missed while you were talking. We're helping Patricia, is they do have the, you know, and I know, you know, Brother Owl a little bit, and what they're doing in that whole Lenape, got this whole, well, anyway, this Center for Ancestral and Indigenous Wisdom. I believe the ribbon cutting is the end of March. And, you know, I feel like all of our needs, our answers are there. Our needs can be met. What we need is a whole shift in the attitude. And it's this attitudinal shift we're working with within the confines of intelligence. At the same time, you know, I know that everywhere I go, it's even I'm on 1,000 freaking Google pages, you know, that's crazy. So I guess where I'm going with this is that we need more action and take these nuggets that we've discovered together, that we can coalesce around. And I hear you on the community, Brother Jamin. I'm really looking at what Glenn is doing. He wants to 3D print. He's excited about this whole 3D printing process of creating new community. And I don't know, just these attitudes are shifting. And I feel like Sir Roland may have some wisdom to share with us.
Looks like he's looking for the unmute button. And after Sir Roland goes, I'll be happy to go because I think I figured it out.
Yeah, good.
Go ahead,
I
Sir.
don't have anything to say other than Kate's amazing. You know, she's a pioneer woman. And I think this is, for me, this is one of the most effective meetings I've had with you all here. And I think Jamin is onto something. And of course, I only have two things that are my mantra: feed the world and climate change. Oh, yeah, no, I meant get the virus under control, and then climate change. I want to keep reminding you all what Sol says. In Brazil, we have 6 to 7 months, 5, 6, 7 months to live before there's the extinction of the human race. And not going to bother me because Minnesota is the last large city in the United States that you can live in comfortably without, and I'm concerned about my daughter. I'm concerned about all the rest of people. I'm concerned about the earth. My God. So that's all. That's my quick little blurt. Kate, yes, you're amazing. And yes, Kate, you are a woman leader in change making or as a change agent. And more love and speed to you. Amen, hallelujah. That's all I got to say, friend.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sir Roland. So Kate, here's what occurs to me. The answer for how we're going to really get to the final ICE9 crystal, because I feel like what I have is an ICE9 crystal hypothesis that says, hey, the strategy should be this, the platform should be this, the community should be this, okay? Including your recommendation for community, Kate. But I see that there are other people who have other proposals for what the strategy should be. That it should be centered around water, it should be centered around spirit, should be centered around indigenous wisdom, et cetera, et cetera. Not the V for Vendetta strategy that Jamin's proposing, right? But A different one. Okay, fine. Here's my proposal for how we get the right ICE9 crystal, the right trio, not the one Jamin says, but the right one. Okay. And the answer is to have a three-legged race. Here, I'm going to screen share. A three-legged race? That's right. What are the three legs? Well, as you see right here in this picture, platform is one leg. Strategy, which gets to exist on top of that platform, right? And community, which embraces this strategy and works on it and evolves it, and which meets on this platform, right? So if those are the three legs, what I'm suggesting is that we have a three-legged race where we basically say, okay, here's one candidate right over here. On the far left, we have candidate number one, platform, strategy, community. And then over here, here's a whole different platform with supporting a different strategy, with a different community participating in, and then over here, a whole different kind of platform with a whole different strategy and a whole different community. And on and on and on and on. Let there be many different, for lack of a better word, competing. But I think competing is old paradigm. I think what we're ultimately going to see is, yes, some degree of competition, but we're also going to see a degree of consolidation, right? So for example, these two might consolidate and say, hey, you know, we've got a new platform, a new consolidated strategy, and a consolidated community. And this is the one we're going with, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, there will be one which, for lack of a better word, out-evolves the others and goes the distance and gets there better, faster, stronger, more effective, right? And it's a co-evolution. The platform will evolve, right? And get better and better and better, and it'll evolve in whatever directions it evolves. The strategy will evolve and evolve and evolve, and the community will evolve and evolve and evolve. We just need a starter for each. What is the starter? So the three-legged race is you have all these candidates, each of which has three legs. Platform, strategy, community. Platform, where do we meet? Under what rules? Under what culture? Under what set of creative agreements? Right? I'm transcribing everything we're saying right here. That's part of the platform. Right? And that's the platform. What's the strategy? Say it. What's your strategy? And then community. What's the starter community? And again, the candidate that I'm proposing for the three-legged race is the Kiko Lab platform, the conversation strategy, the strategy that's emerged from here, basically the V for Vendetta strategy. Let me just write that here. I'll just write a big V. The V strategy, V for Vendetta, which really is two different rows of dominoes, right? One for humanity, the other for Gaia. Okay. The humanity set of dominoes starts with food. The Gaia one starts with SRM. Anyway, that's the V for Vendetta strategy that I'm proposing coming out of the conversation. And the community, well, let's start with Kiko Lab, the conversation, and Brother Phil's community, whatever, you know, obviously whoever
Let me
from that,
throw this into the mix, brother.
tell me.
I'm supporting the platform is Four Winds Institute. The strategies are the guiding principles in the Declaration for Mother Earth, and the way we get to the talking circle strategy. Or I don't know, does that? Learning to be in circles. I find that and you know what? You've just adopted it. I feel you implement it here, that you're always cognizant of every, if there might be a need for the humble or the silent to speak, but I find even at Humanity Rising, got to kind of implement it there, or it becomes the whole top down thing again. It becomes the whole. So I just wanted to throw in the guiding principles and the Declaration for Mother Earth and the Four Winds Institute, and now the new Ancestral and Indigenous Wisdom Center that is arising. I feel like it's an entire new worldview that we're all learning to walk on this earth in a new way. We're learning what it means to walk in beauty and gratitude.
Wow. Love it. Love it. So I wrote this down. The strategy being the guiding principles is what I thought I heard you say. The platform maybe is the talking circle platform, and the community could start with the Four Winds Institute and their community that they've built. So we've got another contestant for the three-legged race. Now just imagine that for this three-legged race, we organize it as an event where we all meet in the main meeting room of the Zoom, whatever Zoom room we're in. And there's one three-legged contestant in each breakout room. And let's say there's 20 different contestants, fine, 20 different breakout rooms. We make everyone co-host. Everyone can go to whatever breakout room they want, check out whatever contestants they want to check out, right? And they can roam around and just, check out the different candidates, just like yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's how this whole beloved community thing has been. They would give you 2 minutes of this is our thing in the world, and you got to choose with whose room you wanted to go in. And so it was kind of interesting. And, usually I love the intense breakout groups, but I found it was better just to kind of flit around and be my own person in this. I'm finding that more and more, of that it's just okay to be who I am, that you don't have to try to. That's the new energy that's coming upon us, is we're recognizing that when you give anyone the space, there's a lot of beauty and potential in all of us. It's just a shifting of leveraging our magic, leveraging our magic in new ways, experiencing the magic of the world in new ways. Look at it as the artist shows up in that perfect time in my screen. You're kind of half frozen, but I'm thinking, and interestingly enough, Humanity Tomorrow is all about art and transformation. It's Peace Week. Everything that the chat action people, the regular folks that came together, put together is this week. So I'm sure I got us off track there. Thanks.
No, it's perfect. And I was on mute, but Melissa overheard what you were saying and said, right on, Kate. So Melissa supports everything you're saying. Yeah, it feels like we're converging. But anyway, so I guess, you know, the biggest thing to come out of today, to kind of summarize it, is the three-legged race, right? But, you know, it's really not so much a race as a collaboration and a co-creation, right? But, you know, we need starting points, not one starting point, but multiple starting points. And
There's where I wanted to go on that thought, brother. As I was telling you about how they allowed us to then go into the breakout rooms with these people, what I was feeling, and you know, the breakout rooms, and I like it when they go there and they take you into that little sub place and then do the harvest. That makes a lot of sense. But then this starting to, you know, there's artificial intelligence now that takes skates out of the picture. There's Weaver and things like that. There's also natural affinity, and there's those things that you can't, you know, make algorithms for. They're just kind of that space that naturally fits or does not. Anyway, what I was thinking as you were talking was that it's just by extension that as these talking circle principles and ways of being become so natural to us, that tapping into the energy of the day, realizing I'm on the 8th day of the sacred path, and recognizing the whole me and I of it all. Let's see, where's my notes from today? Because man, did I take a nugget. What did that guy say? It was so simple but profound. The answer to everything, ID. It depends. It depends. He said the answer to everything, it depends. I loved it. And he's the gentleman who's the linguistic, is specialist in neurolinguistics, and is doing he really talked about movement, you know, the whole sound and movement, adding to the conversation and punctuating how we habituate together. Seems really, you know, that's just part of the whole. I liked how Michael today was talking about the inner psychology, and you know, I thought I've been thinking about the path to the mind and the subconscious, and where that V, if you will, happens. And I think about which one takes you quicker to the heart. That whole reprogramming of the subconscious has been so on my mind, because that, of course, that was a profound, the rebirthing with Brother Phil. I think it's just you and me, right, Jamie? Okay, the rebirthing with Brother Phil. You know, I never had much of a dad, and I had just taken my hair out that day, and you know, they had a candle burning, so they went through the birth, and I'm kind of really into it. And then my lower energy got a hold of me. I had to come over and hit the freaking participants, see who was there, you know, burnt my hair, sizzle go up. Then the gentleman who played the father, Wolf Martinez was his name. And if he doesn't have this amazing story how he was a father but didn't know it, and just found out last year, and like is a gay man, and it was only one night of indiscretion like frickin' 40 years ago that caused this, or 38 years ago. And anyway, he had just become a new father, so that he was the father. And I wound up in the breakout room with him once, not only once, but twice. So we all come back 2 days later, 64 people in the room. I end up in the guys' breakout room twice. It was kind of an interesting little baptism by fire. And then I wind up with Wolf Martinez kind of adopted me. So I back, but and then trying to stay in tune with where you are in your three-legged race. I'm not quite sure. I you know, I like the competitive aspect of it, and that's where I was kind of going. It's more by assimilating all those ideals together and bringing the collective intelligence and the best of all of them out, that the beauty of the circle work lies.
yeah. It's I don't like the competitive aspect either. It's more the Michael Gallo said it well when he was talking about diversity, right? It's not so much competition as diversity, because the reason you have different breakout rooms is because there's different things being said, right? And there's different cultures being tried out and developed. There's different strategies being tried out and developed and evolving. And whoever is in a different breakout room is, by definition, a different community, right? Because any human being can really only be engaged in one conversation at one time in one breakout room, right? So it's really a dance between, so instead of a three-legged race, think of it as a three-legged dance. You know, we're all kind of dancing around, but instead of having two legs, each of us has three, you know, each breakout room has three legs, and we're all getting in there doing this collective dance. So from a three-legged race to a three-legged dance. And, you know, ultimately, it's one dance, right? Just like in a middle school dance, it wouldn't be the same if you weren't there, you know, dancing with Jamin Shively, the dorky bespectacled guy who came up and said, "Hey, Miss Kate, want to dance?" Right? And so here we are, you know, doing our three-legged dance. And, but it's the whole community of three-legged entities that make up the dance, right? So it's a three-legged dance. That's it. And out of the three-legged dance, what emerges? Whatever emerges is whatever emerges, right? I'm hypothesizing that there will be a combination of a platform, a strategy, and a community that just takes off. There may be multiple that just take off. So be it. You know, we shouldn't restrict ourselves. Yeah.
I want to bring to your attention that the Awana Collective, the biggest part of Phil's work, is all Hispanic speaking, you know, and Awana means to weave. So just love what you're saying, brother. You have the most beautiful vision and knowing how to get us there. And so, yes, let us be weavers that tighten this fabric. But I got to tell you, I balk at the whole weaver thing. Like I said, Lord, I'm already on so many Google pages, it ain't even funny. How in the world could you keep up with any of that stuff? And now they want me to weave and put new postcards on there. You know, it's like kindergarten for adults for me. But it's great. It's beautiful. They're making some fun artistic thing. But you know what? I'm better off fixing this pond over here. That's how my skills are better used than being on Weaver. But it's easy for me to listen to you. I don't have to get those stress things going on in my brain about, you know, it's like, and then they want you to, it irks me. You're supposed to be listening to the speaker and absorbing what's being said, right? But there's 10 freaking places they want you to be in the chat at the same time. And add and put your post-it note on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that the answer is not so much in, like, you know, Weaver and these technological tools and all that, but the conversation. When you're in the right conversation, you know it, you can feel it. You're like, whoa, you know, and just be there, go with it, be part of that evolutionary wave, be part of that three-legged dance, be part of that community, having a conversation centered around a strategy and on a platform, in this case, Zoom, a Zoom room. How simple can it be?
And when you're so moved by the speaker, it's appropriate to reach out to him without having to post it all over the world and describe what you then discussed and what is coming out of it. I don't know. I just think it kind of interrupts the natural flow, the natural affinity place that you can't put it on a post-it board. Like you say, you've got to know. You've got to feel it for yourself. It's an intrinsic knowing. But who knows? It'll be fun to see what comes from the beloved community. I think this is kind of the first experiment, and you know, they were so patient. Becky Suzuki just patiently tells you, even I know how to work it. I do know how to work it. I could go on Weaver and probably say more. And but when I pray about what's important to do with my time already, see, I got one of them iPhone 7s. Lord, I never want another one. I hope this lasts me my whole life. I already feel so much guilt from the appliances I've accumulated over the years that I don't want anymore, because I know that children are dying and my people are being, I mean, it's just the slavery mentality more and more to provide the things for the batteries and the, oh God. You know, and when I was a kid, nothing had a battery, and now everything has a battery, everything. And it's been that way for how long? Good Lord. That's why I say, get out of the rain. Stop what you're doing. Stop our poised and pollute ways. But I mean, everybody likes their little gadget, and the kids like their little cars, and it is fun to watch them in it. So how can you not love the battery beyond? But you see the mountain of them, and you know, you see the Koji man who looked at one vehicle and said, how are we going to get this back into Mother Earth?
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, we're 3 hours in to the Solution Club. And where we've netted out is a 3-legged dance consisting of 3-legged participants, a whole bunch of them. And some of those are just going to take off. I remember when I was in this 3-legged race as a kid, I got paired up with another boy who was roughly my size. We tied our legs together and we just got into a rhythm and we just took off and we won, though I don't like that word anymore. But we, in the old paradigm, we won the 3-legged race. And it was just really quite a feeling, right? Because all we did was walk. And we looked behind us and we saw all these other kids that had like fallen down because each one was trying to run in the old paradigm. But the way to win a 3-legged race is walk. It's the tortoise and the hare, right? But it's the tortoise that gets in,
Find the rhythm.
You know.
Find the rhythm is how you win the race now. Yeah, I love the tortoise metaphor.
Yeah, you find the rhythm, and we just got the rhythm. We just walked, you know, step, 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 step. There was the step when both of our legs that were tied together moved forward, and then the outside. It was inside leg, outside legs, inside leg, outside legs, inside leg, outside. That was it. And we just cruised. What a lesson. So, and I think that's the essence, that's the formula for success for the 3-legged dance is get into the right rhythm. And then different, you know, 3-legged dancers can, you know, coexist, cooperate, etc. And I guess that's part of the evolution. So, you know, let's get 3-legged dancers getting in rhythm within themselves as a 3-legged participant, right? And
brother, like this 4-year collective commitment, the 4-year Sundance is teaching us how to do the round dance together once again. I don't know if you've ever been in a festival where it just ends in a round dance. It's easy, everybody can do it, it's fun. The round dance. So I don't know, it's just where you took me. Sorry, I had to throw it in.
No. All good. All good. All right. Well, we're 3 hours and change into the Solution Club. I don't know about y'all, but I'm game for a little break and get a little food and maybe a little rest. Maybe feed the crows. Looks like Kate I don't know if she meant to sign off there, but hope maybe she'll be back. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause recording unless anyone else has anything they'd like to add to this epic recording. In which case, just jump in. Haven't heard from some of the other folks in a while. Love to hear from everyone, but no urgency. All right, I'm going to pause recording anyway. We can always resume.